I got to, you should already know. I got to. Somebody tell me what the deal is.
Chipper safety. Chipper safety. This is Mike A, brand new. He's going to be focusing on some of the chippering today. You won't be running the chipper. I'm going to teach you how, but you'll just be filling the chipper and working around these parts. So one of the first things we want to do, obviously we're all chalked up, so our stuff's not going to roll away on us. We're parked, we've got the parking brake on. That's important, especially on the hill. So the truck is safe to do work. Now the flume, which is what we'll call this. We'll call this the flume and that the chute. Sometimes they get mixed up. Or that's sometimes called the deck, where that opens up. This right here, we want to make sure it's blowing in the proper spot. So on this truck, we fill up the left side first. So however we park, we want to make sure this is right into that back corner, which it is, and that's great. That's all we're going to check on that part. Over here, one of the first things we need to notice is our fuel level. It's actually at the 3/4 of a tank, or half a tank, excuse me, but it's showing us fuel because we're on the slope. So always check to make sure you have fuel. If you run a diesel out of fuel, it's not as easy as just putting fuel back in. If you haven't experienced that, it's a whole bunch of extra work inside the motor. On some of them, you have to take stuff apart and do a whole bunch of stuff to prime it. It's a nightmare. This one wouldn't be too bad, but still a couple hours worth of extra work that we don't want to go through. So your job, his job, my job, everyone's job is to make sure before we run this chipper that has fuel. Diesel lasts a long time, so this shows a 1/4 tank is actually a half. That's going to last us a long time. All day long we can chip on that. So this is one of the fuel valves right here. This is open, so that's good. You know, that shouldn't get messed with, so you don't touch it, don't mess with that. This is the hydraulic oil, and that is the pressurized oil inside of all this that makes it all work, which should always be at 3/4 of the tank. And if you look right here, this stage is a little bit messed up, but it's pointing at 3/4 of the tank. Because it's under pressure, if there was ever an issue you didn't notice, this would be low. And you'd be like, whoa, something's wrong. So always check these two things before you even get started. I've already checked the oil, but I will show you in the future how to check the oil. It's just taking off this back section over here. There's a little metal plate like this that protects it. You open that up and we'll check the oil. We check the oil at least once a week, but sometimes a little bit more often. If we're running the chipper a lot, I'll check the oil more frequently. If we're only running the chipper, a little bit once every other day, then we're not going to be checking it every time. But we do check it a lot because you never want to run diesel without oil, or any engine for that matter. Guys do it with gas engines all the time. They'll run them low on oil. It's not good. It'll actually destroy them, and you don't want to do that. Up in here, we've got our air filter. I've already checked it and cleaned it. We don't replace air filters frequently. What we do is we keep the ones we have, and we clean them out really well with a leaf blower or something like that, so that we keep them nice. This one's been cleaned out not too long ago, so it's good to go. I just checked it. This is all the basic things stuff. Follow me, just step over the sun. You can come around the other side, Tyler. That'll be easier for you. So, over here is our control panel. This is all of our gauges. This will tell us what our RPMs are when we turn it on. There's a switch to get it started. This is called a tattletale switch. The reason they call this a tattletale switch, I'm going to over-explain everything, so if you already know, it doesn't matter. This tattletale switch, what it does is it keeps track of the hours that this machine is running. On machines like this that have nothing to do with mileage, instead of keeping track of mileage like a car would, they keep track of the engine hours. So however many hours we put on this machine, it's going to keep track of it. This switch starts that process. That's why they call it a tattletale switch. It's telling on you about how much you use it. Because people will try to sell a machine with less hours. They might disengage the tattletale switch. Whatever. Ours is working fine. But you have to push in the tattletale switch. Don't go crazy. Now, a lot of the work we do is tough guy stuff, heavy lifting, and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Anytime you're touching any of this stuff, just be gentle, deliberate but gentle. You're not trying to smash or break anything. So just push this button in gently, and you're going to turn the key until it goes to start. The engine's going to kick over. When it starts running, you're still holding onto the tattletale switch, but as soon as it starts running, we let go of that. We're holding onto the tattletale switch until we see the oil pressure get up into the higher pressure zone. So it'll be somewhere between 60 and 80, and it depends on the slope and stuff like that, and you know, just lots of different things. Our volts for our battery are over here, the water temperature's over here. Water temperature gets really high, it'll shoot water out underneath right here. So if you see any coolant coming out, it can happen on a really hot day because it's just one of those things that can happen. See coolant coming out, we need to check everything and make sure it's running the right way. But that's a normal thing that it might send coolant out. It won't be happening today because it's cold out. But the idea is we're gonna see that oil pressure up. I'm gonna let go of the tattletale switch, and now we're looking at two other pieces of machinery. So here, this is our throttle. This is gonna raise up, it's gonna add fuel to the engine and raise up the speed of the engine. This is gonna be our clutch. So what we're gonna do is, while it's still idling, it should idle somewhere between 80 and 700 RPMs. It might idle a little higher if it needs to, but it's somewhere in there, right? Wherever it's idling at, under 800 RPMs, I can engage the clutch. Now the clutch, what it's doing is it's engaging a gear that's gonna run this belt. I don't wanna just throw it on because that's gonna, be too jarring on all the machinery in there and that could hurt it. So I'm gonna get it started by adding pressure to the belt. I'm gonna get this bigger feed wheel, which is inside of there. This monster feed wheel that has a couple of chipper blades attached to it is made out of basically solid steel, and it's super heavy. So to get this moving, you can hear it. As I start to feather this in, I'm gonna add pressure to the belts. That's gonna start that moving. As I keep putting pressure on the belt, I'm gonna hear it moving faster and faster, and then pretty quick, it's gonna be easier to push this in. If I tried to push this in right from the beginning, it would be difficult, hard on the machine, and that's not what we want to do. So we kind of feather it in, get this started. Once we can hear this drum in here moving, then I can push it all the way on. Then I can raise the RPMs. So I'll raise up the throttle when I get to 2200 RPMs. That's the operating RPMs for this specific machine. Some are different, but for this one, it'll be around 21 to 2200 RPMs on average, somewhere, or to 23. If it's higher, it doesn't matter. But if the RPMs are too low, the rest of the machine will not work. So it's got a brain inside there that says, hey, our RPMs aren't high enough, don't start the feed wheel. So we gotta make sure that we raise the RPMs up as high as it'll go and hold that in place. It'll get up to 2200 RPMs and we know we're right. So once we've engaged the clutch, raised our RPMs, our motor's running, the feed wheel will start working and we'll start chipping. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. But if there's an emergency, I don't just come over and turn it off. If he was going in there, I would come over and turn it off. But the best thing you can do is we're gonna do everything backwards. So we're gonna start with the throttle and bring it down. And we're gonna wait till the motor brings its RPMs down. It'll be right here, it's like a tachometer. It'll tell us as RPMs come down, it's gonna say when we get under 800, 730 should be like a good idling place. When we see that 730, we're gonna disengage the clutch and then turn it off. So the only thing we didn't do turning it off is mess with the tattletale switch, because that'll automatically pop out once the motor's turned off. But to start it again, tattletale switch, turn it to start, feather in the clutch, get the clutch fully engaged, bring up the RPMs, 2200. I'm walking away from there and I'm gonna go start chipping. When I get done, I'm gonna come back. I am going to what first? Bring down the RPMs. When it's under what? Then 730. It'll get down to 730, but it has to be under 800. That's your magic number. That's the number you're looking for. So when it's under 800, you can, but it'll usually idle down to about 730, like you said. But when it's down to that number, then I disengage the clutch and turn it off. We're gonna go over that a couple times because that's something that if you do in the wrong order, you break the machine goes into some place to help us fix it because I don't have time to work on this. We'll have to use something else in the meantime. We might be without work for 3 days, a week. It does it, we don't know. So we're gonna do our best to make sure we don't mess this up at all. Every time we're gonna try and make sure this is a big deal to us. That's why we check all the fluids, that's why we do all this stuff. The other thing about this chipper is we need to grease all the moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts. Some need just one just one shot of grease. Some need multiple shots of grease. I've already greased it because it's too long to go through the whole process. But now we're going to go to the back and we're going to talk about chipper safety. So when you're back here running the chipper, we normally have one guy feeding the chipper at a time. Because when two guys are here and one guy's pushing something in and it kind of grabs, another guy's bringing something in, you can get caught up in kind of a triangle and it can be problematic. And also people get frustrated when somebody else drags something up and puts it on top of the brush they're trying to put in. To keep that stuff at a minimum, we usually just have one guy running. Today you'll be running it with somebody else because you're learning how to do it. But in here, one of the first things you might look for is any rocks. There should never be rocks in the chipper, but there's a chance that somebody loaded something in at the end of the day and didn't notice it. Or sometimes we'll take chocks in the gravel and throw them in the back as we store stuff back here, and it might have rocks caught in the treads of the chocks, and it'll get rocks in there. So we're just gonna look real quick. I'm just doing a quick little look. So let's pretend the chipper's running. This is an imaginary line right here. You can see a definite line there. My hands and my body do not go past that point. If something's there that needs to be messed with or pushed in further, I'm going to use a tool. Because if a tool goes through a chipper, that's not good, but it's a lot better than you going through the chipper. So we keep out of this area. This is called the control bar, and you can see these two things that hang down from it. That's your last opportunity if you were going in to protect yourself. If you were going in, a branch grabbed your shirt and just got you in the right place and it's pulling you in, of course you'd be screaming for help probably. I would be. And if you're not, you should be. But as you're going in, your last opportunity is to grab one of these. If you pull this out, that's going to stop the feed wheel and reverse it. And that's what you want. So this chipper's seen better days. It's kind of rough. You're just going to be real careful. The thing you're always going to watch out for is as you're chipping, you're going to be chipping stuff right here, right there where you're at. You're going to step to the side. So if you're chipping and you step to the side, if you're moving the chips in like that, the wood branches and stuff in like that, it can't pull you in really. And you're close to this if you needed to stop it. If anything, if this were to break, this is still going to be able to control it. But in the middle, it's running. If you pull it backwards toward you, it will stop. If you push it back, it will reverse it. Okay, so in the middle it's running, back is reverse, and pull it forward is forward, stops it. In the middle it's just running, and that feed wheel will grab stuff and pull it in for you. So all the way forward, stops it. Stops it, all the way back, will stop, going in or reverse it. So either one. Right in the middle it's just running regular. It is pretty easy to move. So sometimes branches will hit it, and that's not what we're looking for. Go ahead and stop your phone. We're going to fire it up and run some branches through. You need eye protection, best to have gloves on. This is a thing with chippers that you have to know, is you've seen some of those leather gloves that have a strap that goes around your wrist, or it'll have a buckle or something like that. Those are called gauntlet style gloves. And we don't wear gauntlet style gloves ever when operating a chipper, or anything else that could pull us in, because if something gets underneath our glove and we have gauntlet style gloves on, gloves are really strong and it could pull your whole hand in, and that's what we don't want. So we're always going to wear gloves that can come off pretty easily. These are just nitrile coated with a little bit of grip. These are the ones that we use the most because you don't need a fancy glove. Right. These are kind of cheap, but they're enough to keep your hands protected throughout the day and have lots of ventilation when it's real hot, because it's cool right now, but most of the time it's hot out. Okay, so we're gonna fire up the chipper and we're gonna use it. You got your safety glasses? Stick them on. Mine are integrated into my helmet. But I'm just gonna come back here and we're gonna feed it. Now, something that you guys already talked about as you were pulling this brush forward, is you were talking about stacking this brush in a way that makes it available. So if I just put brush any different direction, I go to grab something, it would be tangled up in everything else. So what he probably showed you earlier is we lay brush down with the butt facing the chipper, and then we put the next branch on top of that with the butt a little bit further forward, and that makes it to where when I go to grab that first forward one, I can always put it in the chipper. A smart guy showed me that a long time ago, I can't even remember his name. All right, so ears on, eye safety on. And you're gonna watch me run through the process, and we're gonna chip a little bit, and then we're gonna be done. So I'm tattletale. Welcome to the crew. Did you bring lunch today?
No.
That's pretty common, you know. Something happens all the time. New guys forget to bring lunches. No big deal. I plan ahead. Here's some water for you, big guy.
Thank you.
All right. Would you rather have a sandwich or sardines? So, peanut butter and honey, okay?
Yeah.
Here you go. Peanut butter and honey. All right. Peanut butter honey crunch, triple decker. Yeah, try to open that with one hand. Good, right? All right, let's see what else is in here. We've got our Hobby Lobby bag of super awesome stuff. Granola bar. There you go, buddy. Apple chips, bud. There you go. These are for you too. All right. And I'm going to start off with my sandwich and then bust into some of these bad boys. Oh yeah. Enjoying the view. Yeah, we're taking out that huge oak that was on the house. We've already cleared off all the stuff that was on the house itself and got all that cleared off. All the stuff that was on the decks and the roof. Now we're working our way back, and we're just going to keep pushing this back until we get this whole thing out of their yard. And we'll be checking in with you guys and keeping you posted. But right now, it's lunchtime. All right. So if you're not a fan of sardines, you should become one. 1,700 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids. You need those. 22 grams of protein, 15% of your vitamin D. This is where it's at right here. I like the Kippered snacks. Feel stronger already. You should try it. Or bring him with me. It's good for you.
He ain't never mad at you. He got your back like a alley-oop. Yeah. Hold up. We ain't playing. Represent your whole up. Cause I got to already. Hey, time to lift my hands. I lift them way up.